Okay, nice to have the survivors around, and it's always actually good to perform after the coffee break, but not after the lunch, as you know. But a coffee break is just enough to get you glucose up, a bit happier. But thank you for eating those wonderful sandwiches and being here. My name is Tom, and my colleague's name is Aune. We have one microphone to share, so if you see us fighting and struggling for it, it means we have a lot to say. So what I'm going to tell for the beginning, a few words about who we are and why we are here, and what we are going to do, and then we'll get into it. Myself, I'm an entrepreneur myself in many smaller companies, but also I've worked last 4 or 5 years as a consultant for social enterprises, small companies and NGOs. So in all my work during the last 5 years, I've been standing with one foot into for-profit business and with another foot in non-profit business. And the last 2-3 years, I've been working with organizations who try to put those things together, as we did in the first part of the day yesterday. So a lot of what I will be offering you today is the view of the consultant, how to think more easily about those items, how to make your thinking process more easy. Obviously will not make the entrepreneurship more easy, but maybe preparing for it. And Aune?
My background is in one side business consultancy, and on the other side I've been involved in many NGOs, and through that somehow I also realized that social enterprises are something that I find that make me really passionate to work with, and what I strive for every day is to help the social enterprises in Estonia, also working for the Estonian social network, enterprise network that we established this year. So if anybody wants to talk about that later, that's also an option. But during my master's studies, I found that I can combine this studying and researching social enterprises. So what you see today is also partly based on my master thesis and how to help social enterprises develop their social business models, basically. So what we have done with Toomas here is make it as practical as we can, and I took only from the academic side what we needed as a basis here.
See, we start. Last bit of selling the idea of the following workshop here. Just what's going to happen. As we said, there are practical tools. They are analytical tools, so you need to think about it, how to think about the topics. But why they are practical tools? Because we think those tools will dramatically, make shorter the time you spend on discussing issues before you start trying issues. So the main idea for entrepreneur with these two tools we're going to offer is to see whether these tools will make my teamwork easier and make myself to go to the market more quickly. That's the idea behind it. And what I've seen that with social enterprises especially, the most important issue about them, whether they have any social impact at all, but you can't even talk about whether you have impact at all if you don't know what you want to achieve in the first place. So what we're going to do today is 2 processes. Shorter process with social business model canvas, offered by Aune. And secondly, we second process, a bit bigger process, more practical process. It's going to be a tool for testing your ideas and assumptions, parts of this business model. So in first section, we would ask you to think along with us, and we're going to show you the way how to describe a social enterprise in a particular way. And we will ask you from you a bit later on whether it was clear, whether did it make point for you or not. If you got confused in the process somewhere, why, what is it about, tell us. This is the part of the workshop. So, and in the second part, we're gonna work with you on a specific idea. We're gonna try to weigh with a tool. We're gonna try to make this idea testable. So there are gonna be 5-6 groups working on the same task, and we're gonna have probably 7, 8, 9, or 10 different results. And then we're gonna discuss if it was of any use. Is it okay with you?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you are really nodding. Our colleague said that you were nodding. Now I see you are really nodding. Thank you for that. So I give floor to Aune.
So who has worked with business model canvas by Osterwalder. Okay, some people already know. What we have done here is to add a second layer to business model canvas, the social layer. And you can also put the slide. Basically what it is a tool which combines business model blocks, or like building blocks if you imagine, and you can change and develop all of these blocks, but the idea is to visualize your own all business model on one scheme. In the center we have the value proposition, which is the most important for what kind of value we will create. Then we will have the target groups. When we talk about social business models, then we will have probably two target groups: the customer and the beneficiary, who, for example, whose problems we are solving. We will give you soon the worksheet also, where you will have the exact questions and what all these boxes mean. We didn't want to go too much into the detail with this building blocks today, but more just to look at the example we saw here about the childcare earlier, and to play with that in that model. So how you would proceed to work with it. Is it understandable? Okay.
Okay. Let's see how do we do it.
Yeah, you will have this little worksheet here. But that's more to show you what you can work with your own idea later on. But first of all, if we take this example we had earlier, look for gear, right? Yeah, look for gear.
I'll take a half. Can you pass it to this side?
Yeah, just pass it around. So take 1 minute just to look at it. If you have some questions right away. So we divided all the boxes into two. There is two questions always. If you have a different customer than beneficiary, then you always have to answer the questions for both of them. So that's why all the boxes are with two layers. I would like to stress one more time that here we have added a second layer of the social impact part, which is usually not, which wasn't on the Osterwalder canvas. And we also changed some of the boxes. We brought here the problem that you want to solve in the society in a wider sense. And also we added the metrics part, how you actually measure it, because that actually came from one development of Osterwalder, the lean canvas, where they also stressed that, okay, we can talk about all the nice things, but if you don't measure it, then you don't know if you succeed. So we added these two things here, and put all the partners and resources and everything together under this key resources part. But okay, let's start with look for care example. We are not experts on it. We just dropped into this group here and listened to what they did and what they were talking about. So that's kind of like our view of it. And we don't pretend that we understood everything, but we will just use it as an example here. And first of all, if you work with this, yeah, you can now. The business models, if we talk about them, you always have to concentrate on one target group. And we chose, because Look for Care has two customers, the nannies and parents usually, right? Okay, so we now will describe one of the customer, the parent who would pay for the service as a customer. So if you imagine a mother who is in a need of a nanny in a very short time, they are very rushing and looking for the nanny. What kind of objectives you would say? What this mother would look like? How does she feel, or? So, if you think about the single mother who wants to find a nanny very fast, tell me some objectives. How does?
What is she like?
What is she like? Anything? Stressed. What else? Scared? Cares. Okay.
Scared also.
Yeah.
Okay.
Suspicious, more like suspicious about who might be the best paranoid.
Would you like to put paranoid here? Suspicious?
I see men talking, yeah?
Okay, what else?
Her needs.
How?
Her needs.
Her needs?
Parents' own needs.
Okay.
Yeah, but what are they?
She wants to make something else.
Okay. Distracted then maybe.
No, I think she has some kind of other thing she wants us to do. That's why she needs nanny. So something else on her mind as well, which she would do then.
Lack of time.
Hmm?
Lack of time.
Lack of time. Okay. So whenever we're going to work with the business side of this canvas today, then you will have to think about this this person here, the customer, as a very specific person. Then you will have a much better result. To have a very concrete person in your mind, what kind of needs do they have? And then we will probably have a much better result. If you decide to take customers as all the parents in Estonia, then it's much harder for you to find very specific things you could do. Okay? So that's our customer.
And honestly, I can't stress that point enough. The most situations where a situation gets confused and you don't get the picture what you are doing, and no one from outside can't help you, the consultant is completely having a spinning head, is because people try to discuss all different customer groups with us within the same model. I mean, obviously, if you do things, you always try to actually satisfy many customer groups with one product. But in order to analyze it, you really need to start with specific customer in mind.
Okay, so what I got from this model, if I would walk through very fastly, if you take this customer and then the value you're offering to them is a nanny very fast, if I put with the very simple keywords, right? Instant nanny, instant nanny. And the relationship, this part here, the relationships with these groups, there is a big trust issue that if you look on that side, then you will have to trust that you will get a good nanny. That's the key question here, how to do it. And then the channels down here. Then we talked a lot about the Facebook. that's one option of the channel where you get that they already on the Facebook, they saw that their friends are recommending this service, so if they need it, they will go to the Facebook and then they will find themselves a nanny. You can put here different kind of channels, that's just one example. Then the revenue comes from the monthly payment option, right? And that's already solution wall 2. They already have experimented with some other solutions, but now it's a monthly payment. And now we covered this, the right part of this model, which is more about the relationships and customers, but you also have like a back office where you want to make sure that you have everything that you need for this business model. And then you will look at the, for example, the key resources, what kind of partners you need, what need for these business models, what kind of resources you need. What could be here the key resource that they need to offer this service?
Lots of babysitters.
Lots of babysitters, that's a key resource. Okay. And how would they know that their solution is successful? That they will guarantee to this customer that she gets an instant nanny. What's the main thing that we could measure here?
How happy the child is later.
Hmm?
How happy the child later is.
How happy the child is.
But can you really, as a provider, measure it? This is a key question. It would be nice to measure it, but what you can measure is a question.
Did you got the nanny or not?
Yeah.
On time.
Yeah, we can put that right now. Okay.
Or if they come back, like
Okay.
the service more often.
Yeah, and return customers. Okay. Then,
I'm sorry, I have a question.
okay.
When we described the customer, then all of the aspects we used were purely psychological.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't mention anything about the purchasing power of the customer.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you do it, take your time with it. It's also a very good point to add here some very good concrete things like how much they are willing to pay, what's their average salary, what kind of interest they have, do they use Facebook, different kind of things that you can map out. That's very good.
Because if we mentioned at first that it would be a single mother,
Yeah.
then the purchasing power will probably be really low. And at the moment in the model we are saying that the payment option is a monthly payment, which might add to it.
Yeah.
So there's a slight conflict.
Yeah, that's very good. Now you already see that when you play with this canvas, you will see different kind of questions. Okay, this doesn't work. Let's give this, put the other option here. That's a very good comment here. Okay.
By the way, who is paying monthly to whom?
The parent is paying to the your site, right?
Why not just once?
Right, if you care about the actual model we have, or what would be good?
What you have right now.
So the model we have right now is either one pays. So if the nanny pays, then the parents can use that nanny for free. I mean, well, they would pay for the nanny service, but they don't pay the site. If the nanny doesn't pay the site, then the parents looking at the nanny. Does that make it clear?
Well, I'll add one point to your question now. Generally, it's a very good question because there are different options that they are weighing. But what happens when you start off, what I see from the starting companies, they say, I don't know, I think mother will pay some, then the nanny will pay some, maybe local municipality will pay some. And then again, they kind of sedate themselves with this dream that I have so many possibilities to get money without actually going like you offered. See, if I put single mom as a payer here and monthly payment, how much? Will she able to do it? Okay, if I put local municipality, monthly payment, they work on annual budgets. So this kind of run through, if you have several things in mind, then you actually need to make different canvases to test them out. And this is, in a sense, a really good question, not to get it confused.
Okay, just to add here, also you can put the problem here, what kind of problem you're solving. We already covered it partly here, that they are in a very hurry and they have to find it fast, so that's the problem they have. And you also here you should put as a final thing the costs that come with this model, which in this case are connected with websites mostly, and the marketing, as I understood. So that's the business side of this model, and that's pretty much very similar to what Osterwalder did with the canvas in the first hand. But we now had the second layer for the social impact also.
Okay, so probably we don't need to draw it again, but let me think how to present it to you. So you have the same thing on your sheets. So now let's see as from this part and which customer, which beneficiary we're going to analyze at the moment. Also. Okay. So for the sake of just to see how it works, or how it would work, I'll put it in the right place. We're going to explore this gray part of the model, which is about social impact. And what we wanted to achieve, we wanted to put the idea how you create the social impact and value on the same model as financial value. Because then you understand in the same picture they're doing both at the same time, not have business department and social impact department. And let's see how it goes. Let's say our beneficiary, so the one who is getting benefits, but not necessarily paying, but maybe paying also, but the one we want to improve, their life to improve. For the sake of argument, let's put your nanny. And think what would nannies benefit from this particular business. So you have a nanny as a target group. Let's see what we can offer to the nannies at all. As what I've heard is that the nannies are the people usually who are young and they have time during the university to do this work. Or usually they are also older people who already have time now when they're retired or they have less work or their children are grown up. So essentially what we see that one of those customers, if we put nanny as a beneficiary, some of the beneficiaries want some income, as students do, university students, some flexible income. But some other of our beneficiaries will want something to do in their life because they have too much time on their hands. Maybe the income is not that important in some cases. So if I get to this point, I immediately go back to beneficiary to think, aha, we have completely different types of beneficiaries. So you have some of the students in university who are in need of money. Actually, they don't have so much life experience, but then again, they can settle for not too much money because they really don't have alternative income sometimes. And then again, you can have pensioners, older people, who may have more time on their hands, but on the other hand, maybe there are other issues, how to reach them, how to communicate with them. So let's choose one, and let's, for the sake of it, choose a student. Let's leave now the pensioners and older people who have made a circle out. Let's leave them here. So we have students as beneficiaries who want to be nannies, and we can offer them an income and some work to do. Flexible hours, things like that. So that's what drives them. How do you reach them? What are the channels? What do you offer? Where do you find the students who want to be babysitting? University? More specifically, how, if you would need to go now, where will you find a nanny?
Pedagogical.
Yeah, start getting that is maybe pedagogical university. We can have some people who do social work, some people with more suitable background, because here we can also say they're inexperienced. So the more experience they have due to the studies, the lesser the risk is. I mean, so for the other part of the model. But here to help them, maybe we need students at least who know what they're doing so they don't fail immediately. Relationship with a beneficiary. So what kind of relationship as a businessman or as a social businessman you need with a young nanny to be for her to be able to do that work? So imagine, you are a businessman, you have a young student said, I've never been a nanny, or I've been sometimes nanny to my little brother, but I want to be a nanny. How come? What kind of relationship you build with them? Is it basically purely business, you make a contract with them, or what do you think? Imagine yourself as a nanny, those who haven't been nannies.
It's more like family business.
But the family business?
Offer some additional training.
Okay. I think that both of you, I agree with the way you're going. It can't be just purely, you know, just formal relationship. You need to support the person emotionally. It is a family business. You have to be close emotionally. You need to be supportive. Maybe you need to train a person as well. So you need to have also mentor relationship and things like that. So something goes like this. Now, the revenue streams, will they pay? They're getting the help, can they pay? Would you put something in your revenue stream from the university students as nannies? Not really, probably not really, because in fact they need money rather than, you know, give. So, fact 0, we can't consider anything in this target group, in this beneficiary group. Let's see what we need to do with it. So, key resources. What do you need to make a university student into a nanny for her to be able to perform as nanny? So what kind of things you need to do before you let this person out in the wild to the family? Please don't you tell others. What would you be first ideas? What you do with this nanny before you are able to say, go to the family now and perform? Training. So you need to actually, in this part, to create this value for this beneficiary, you need to train the person. So you need to have some cash flow also beforehand to train the person. Otherwise, what will happen? Not only your other part of the model will fail, and parents will say, I don't trust you, but also this person will get a negative experience and will never try being babysitter again. So in fact, you've done some harm. You could be ending up doing harm. And we can also say about key metrics. So perhaps this person returned from a parent, and parents were more or less pleased. But the nanny is shaking. So how will you know that this young person is actually getting better, or getting more confidence, or getting some income? Is there a way to know?
Coaching, mentoring.
Again, we come back, for example, you need time for that. You need to speak with that person. Every time that person comes back, probably someone needs to have a conversation. It also means that if you have 100 nannies per day out, you will need to have so many people talking with them afterwards, or some kind of a system that puts some limits to this if you go this way. This is the ideas we want to start bringing up. Now again, often you need to come back for testing to this part. Are we actually helping those people by solving their problem? So if this young nanny's problem was really only about cash, and she couldn't care less about actually getting life experience or being a nanny, maybe you're overdoing it. Maybe there's an easier way to get the person the cash. Maybe she could be a waiter somewhere that's safer, that's comfortable for her much more. So perhaps we need to find a single out target, those who really want to succeed as communicating with people, as nursing someone. And again, you come back, target group, saying that maybe we need to narrow it down.
And if you talk about the social enterprises that are already on the market here, then it's also very good place where to look. If you have your social goal for your whole social enterprise, if this is aligned with your like the main goal, otherwise it's why would you do it if you don't work for the main goal of your social enterprise?
Remember, Kerry in the first part said that there's a matrix about where you can get money from and where your social mission is met. And there is some places where you have a lot of money, but your social mission is low. For example, if we would en masse push students to be nannies and not taking care of this mentoring and quality, and some of them failing, in fact, we could get quite a lot of money. I think you have competitors who just, deliver nannies without caring about the people who are nannies. In this case, you can get nice revenue stream, but then if you ask if I help the beneficiary, if the nannies and students are better off, the answer would be some of them are better off, some of them are worse off, and some of them are completely untouched. So per all the money you funnel through the system, your social impact could be very little if you don't narrow it down.
I'd like to add that the best nanny is grandfather or grandmother. That when we talk now, it's the illusion. We need reality things, not illusions. Understand? Best nanny is granny, grandfather or grandmother. And every person is here in the society needs the best solution. That's second introduction.
I'll thank you for this remark, because that's exactly what discussion this business model should bring about. And if we'll go to the second part, testing tool. We're going to test a bit different assumption, but this is one of the things that in fact you need to test. For example, if I were an investor and I look at this model, I would ask exactly that. Prove me that this university student can be good nanny at all. I think it's impossible. So I mean, but on the other side, for example, I would see from the other side, I know sometimes some people prefer young nannies because it tends to be sometimes that grandmas and grandpas are so away from internet reality and young person's reality that this is also part. So some of the parents might, but you actually brought the issue that we need to prove. So before I would invest, I would bring the company on the table, say, prove it to me. Do you have evidence? Do you have evidence that it's better? And the key question is that, is it okay morally, you know, to give a bit of second-rate nanny to a family, but by that to help the students to become better nannies in the future? So this is already the moral question, and it's about the mission that the social entrepreneur has. And this is the thing. Some of them can say, yes, I think the society needs this kind of compromise for common good.
Usually the grandparents are so overwhelmed with nannying anyway, so so the mothers need some kind of other channels for nannying.
But a fair question.
Yeah, that kind of discussions are what we want to have when we work with this canvas, that you would really have meaningful questions and then you argue them through in your team basically, and then you find the solution and then you go out there and test it and then come back here and say, no, it didn't work or it worked, and then you can move on.
I mean, just to take an example, I've seen companies, and I've been in one during my life, where you start off and you offer a service, to take an example, to the young, with the young nannies and with the old nannies, and when this part, where young nannies do, for example, fail, then your business partner will say, I never believed in it anyhow. And I mean, then at that point, as a business partner, you want to strangle your friend for not telling that before, that you don't believe in it.
I have a question.
Yep.
How could we make sure that we don't switch the customer and beneficiary?
What do you mean by switch?
Well, for example, we could say that the problem we started with was that the single mother had no nanny. And now what we came up with was a single mother paying monthly payments, and whose needs we are talking about is a nanny who could just as well be a waitress, as we just mentioned. So how do we prevent confusing who is going to be who in the model?
I'll try to start answering, and Aune will continue the answer. There are two different answers for that at least. Firstly, you can say for that we need to be really clear about what we're talking about, but this is a simple answer. The bit more difficult answer is saying, I wouldn't say it's a confusion, it's a choice. In fact, there could be different types of social enterprises. One of them have a straightforward model. For example, there is a paying customer and he's getting the value, which is both financial, have a financial relationship, but also you're getting better off. So for example, if I have some kind of a low-cost consultancy for those people who are unemployed, then they are paying low fee, but they're also getting the benefit. So they're customer and beneficiary at the same time. There could be a model which is they're completely separated. For example, I sell clothes and socks for charity. I mean, I have a clothing business. I earn a lot of profit by that. And then I take this money and everything goes into helping my target group which cannot pay. In these cases, we cannot switch them because they're really different type of people. This one is a fascinating one. This was a combined model. On both sides of the model, we're delivering social value, but at least on one side of a model, or on both sides of the model, the money is also circulating. So in this case, you need to ask the same question on both sides. Whether I'm doing good on both sides, and whether I'm financially sound on both sides. In fact, I mean, if, for example, if you have mothers paying, then mothers need to be paying enough for nannies to be of quality. So if you can't ask mothers enough money to deliver them quality nannies, then you can't do it. Then the answer would be then. Because basically you can't forget either side in this model.
Maybe just to add that also it's very different if you have a working organization already and you have some things fixed that, okay, this is our main goal for the organizations, and then we already pretty much can put the problem here and we will work towards that. But right now we were playing with different options, so that's there are so many options here that you have to choose at some point.
And to roughly give you again the idea why we think this tool could help you at some point, if you're consulting or you're doing a new enterprise or evaluating your own. Roughly, if a new group of people comes and says, look, we have a social business idea, and they start talking about it, I try to picture this model in my head. At average, I think within the 2-3 minute pitch, they pitch me 4 different models. 4 different, one will get confused, as you said. And then you say, okay, let's sit down. Let's take a small narrow group. Can you draw it? Yes, we can. For a second group, can you draw it? Yes, we can. For a third one, actually doesn't add up. Fourth one doesn't add up. Okay, we have 2 left. Now, do you believe in number 1? No, I don't actually believe. So we have 1 left. Usually this process can take up to a year and a half, and many of them don't make it. That's why they fail, in fact, because they try too many things at the same time, instead of choosing the one they believe most and failing it quickly. So this is the issue of switching who is beneficial, who I'm helping is problem. That's why we brought this problem part here as a testing bit. Whenever you've been lost in this part, you need to come back here. Am I solving the problem of a customer, paying customer, mother in need of quality nanny? Am I solving the student's problem, or the waitressing is better off for this student? So, the thing.
Okay, that was just to give you the overview of the canvas. If you find it useful, you can take it to your organization and work with it and ask from us to help you if you need. Do you have any questions about it right now? I know it was brief, but very specific questions that you want to be answered here right now.
Would you use it ever?
Yes.
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 Why on earth?
I like it. Because it helps to aega kokku hoida.
To save
Save
time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
A lot.
Oh, that's good.
Okay. Let's go.
If you feel that.
Thank you. I'll miss that.
We will share that with you either in English or Estonian. How do you prefer? I will send you a link where you can download it later on. So, and you can play with it and change. We have changed it 5 times already when we find that something works better. And so it's not a fixed thing.
And I find it very important is playing with this canvas. Because if you are making only 1 or 2, it doesn't help. You must play with your ideas.
Okay.
Yeah, it's true that if you play with you can put it on the wall and put the post-its there, or however you feel comfortable to work with your team. So that was the canvas, but here we also met this thing that okay, we think and we assume and we must like somehow test it if it works before we can really either we go and either fail and or succeed, or we test it in a small scale beforehand, and then we can really see if it could work. So what we want to do now is to work with another tool where you can feel yourself, and we don't we feel it with you here, but more about the group works. And the idea of this is to start testing your element of this business model that needs to be tested before you can actually start implementing it.
While the paper is moving around, I'll just give a general understanding what's going to happen. So you can listen to me and wait for the paper. The paper is not too informative by itself. So in this process, I think, Aune, you can tell after I do that a few words of background why this exactly. But we are exactly looking for the process that would answer the question, what's next after the business model? And how do we deal with the questions that were asked, for example? But why do you believe this nanny thing would work at all with young people? And these kind of very fundamental questions we need to do. So generally what is being said to the entrepreneurships is that you just need to try and fail. But with some things you really don't want to fail. I mean, because in a trust business, if you fail it big time once, it's done. So you want to do something better to test something. Now, this model, this process that we're going to go through with you, how much time do we have? Do we have until?
We have 1 hour and almost half.
1 hour, okay, roughly 1 hour we have to work. Now it will be more active part for you, so listening part is more or less over. The listening to each other part starts. So there are going to be 2 stages. In first stage, I'm not going to go too in detail, but in the first stage, we're going to make the general questions, like, I don't know if it works, into a specific question about what kind of number needs to be present for me to be sure. So in the first one, we try to generate specific questions to test. And the second part, we'll discuss what do you mean by testing it, what do you need to do to test it, okay? And this part, I promise you one thing, it's going to be, for some of you, at some point, it's going to be confusing. So if you feel confused at some times, try to find a way to solve the question, and then we'll see about it. So certain confusion will be a part of this process now, and it's good, because then we're going to know what works, what doesn't work, okay? If you feel confused, don't feel stupid, you're not. Okay?
And we didn't want to somehow invent the bicycle, so we went to the lean startup world and looked what kind of tools are there already for the startup entrepreneurs. And we found this kind of very good material in the book that is called Getting to Plan B. And the idea behind is that you very fastly experiment if your solution works or not, and then you can really fast move on. And then you will get to the plan B, and the plan B is something that is more likely to work. And our assumption there was that this can be translated into the Estonian social enterprise field also. And we have adjusted it a bit, and we'll work through with it today. On this page you also have the name of the book, and if you want to look up the original version, and I will also send it around if somebody wants to see it now. And it's still an experimental tool for us also, so bear with us and see how it works for you. And also this applies that you can adjust it for yourself and play with it as with the canvas.
So we'll put it on the screen, the one that we're working with.
Okay. How's your energy level? Can you keep up or it's low? You can massage your ears. That makes your blood pressure okay again and makes the blood flow again. And I guess if you start discussing, then the more energy will come to the room also.
Okay, we're gonna work in groups, but actually, in fact, it's not compulsory to work in groups. I think if you really want to work alone now, you can do that as well. But I think in group it's gonna be more interesting. And I mean, you can form any kind of group, so we don't need to have groups of 5 or 4. I mean, just as you want to group up, if it's okay with you. Aune, do we present it with verbally or with example immediately? Immediately. Okay. Then I'll give the.
Okay. If it's okay with you, then we will still work with the same example, because we already. Yeah.
They're gonna pay us for marketing later on.
Yeah.
That's our business model. You're not paying. They are.
Send the invoice.
I'm just kidding.
For VAT.
Okay, so now we want to have a very specific question, what we got already from the business model. There were already some questions asked about when we worked. Is there something very specific you found that that you would like to explore more out of these questions we already had? Did something stick in your mind that I would like to know if it really works or not? Or we will propose our version.
I can propose, like, are there less disappointments with the nannies that were tried for the moment?
You mean tried by tried? You mean what?
By tried, somebody actually invited a nanny to their house, and then are they Yeah, well, maybe it's because it's worded negatively. It's not a good question.
So the idea is that we want to, part of our sales process will be that the nanny will meet, potential nanny will meet the customer before deciding which nanny to choose, yes? Or
No.
no?
And I think the question is, how many of them were like, the feedback was negative after?
Right. So for the social side to be tested, there's two. We can test the single mom or we can test the nanny. Right. The nanny's benefit is getting the training and the courses, so we can test how many of them got educated. But from the mother's side, for the mother, the biggest questions are, as relates to our site, they think, did I find it? And is the nanny good? And in the is she good or is she or he good question, the comparison cannot be to no nanny at all, because that's not a fair comparison, that's not a fair test, right? So it has to be, is it good compared to somebody found through a different channel?
Okay. So you need to, basically you want to achieve the fact that people get good nannies and they're happy with the nanny they got.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are different probably ways to get to it, and one of the ways you think will be to allow them, what would be then your possible solution to this? To allow them to meet before, or?
Oh, they might not have time. I mean, but yeah, I mean, of course they have to meet. You know, they don't just send the keys in the post. So they do have to meet.
I mean, do you think it's okay for the demo example?
Yeah.
So we.
I think it goes a lot to this relationship with the customer side also, right? Or yeah, what kind of relationship you want to have, and you had this trust issue, so now you want to experiment one specific thing there. That they would trust more if.
Yeah. So that's what we are trying to ask you of, is that we need some kind of specific plan to test now. I mean, there's in business model we need make some kind of idea that in business plan, for example, we say what is the relationship, for example, with the customer we have, and we write there something, you know, we have a trusting relationship. Now we need to fulfill it with some kind of a plan. So what do you do for the relationship between your company and customers to be trustful, or between nanny? And so if you can come up with one of the plans, then we can see if it can be tested.
Okay, so we need a plan to test the assumption.
You just need a plan you will try to implement in order to have trust. So what you're going to do for it. And then we're going to test if it works.
Oh, right, okay, I see. Oh, to generate trust, I would just make the website nicer.
Okay, let's not go to the solutions bit, but
I don't understand.
Okay.
What are you saying?
Okay. We will test from the business canvas the box where you said the relationship with the customer,
Right.
and you have some. You put there that the trust is very needed, right? So now somehow you have to test how will you gain this trust, and
If you can actually build it.
yeah, if you actually can build it.
Oh.
Okay, so now we can find ways to test this.
Your goal is to create trust
Is it
as fast
understandable?
as possible. How fast can it be? And we can also like this, okay, let's meet.
I have a question that maybe there are other possibilities of what's the, like solving the real problem, what's the real problem that women don't have enough time, or maybe there is possibility of uniting children from the neighborhood, of then would be of trust, people you know, and then one woman instead of like 6 women with 6 babies sitting at home, one woman with 6 babies. So what's the real problem that's behind? Because the nannies, it's like old school. There is new innovation also in like babysitting industry.
But you still have the same issue. I mean, you're not getting rid of the if you have a neighboring you live in a big building. There's another single mother. How do you trust them? They might have a different different behavioral pattern. They might have a different. I mean, you're not getting rid of the trust issue.
But then you have the trust that this woman has the same, almost the same age of child, because if you take,
Yeah, but
for
they're gonna
example,
feed
the
your
case
child,
student-
like, your child is like a
Okay.
gluten allergic and they're gonna feed her gluten,
Guys,
so.
I think you hit the spot. We have a nice discussion here. We understand that either it's a nanny and a mother, or it's another mother being a nanny in this role and a mother, but they're two strange individuals.
Yeah.
And what we know about them, for sake of this, to be more specific, is that they're more or less same age group, social background. Let's make this kind of general assumption. They are not, you know, one from different continent and or different age. That's to test the idea. And now we need to, they meet, and this meeting has to generate trust. Very short meeting. Obviously, it's not the genuine trust that is. So we need to have quick trust to go on with. Now, what could be the ways? Any idea to create this? You have 1 hour meeting between two people who didn't know each other before, but they know each other background roughly. What would be some of the solutions, and we test if it works. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, actually, let's do it in. I want to suggest let's have a short group work. You know the parameters: nanny, a mother, roughly same age, roughly same social background, not too different. 1 hour, and by the end of this 1 hour, they need to have enough trust to go for it. Don't offer yet. Just we'll give you a few minutes and discuss at the end. What would you do within this 1 hour? What should be the content of this 1 hour to try to get it? That's quite a crucial part.
ma saan aru, et on vaja aru saada, kas usaldus selle teise ema, kes last kasvatab, või kasvataja, kes ei kasvata last, näiteks üliõpilane. Kuidas tunni aja jooksul selgelt saada, et nende vahel on usaldus või ei ole?
ema potentsiaalne nanni enam-vähem oma potentsiaalselt taustast, kas nende vahel üle tunni jooksul selgitada
It certainly would work because by that
Sorry, do not introduce me.
Yeah. So you can like that, based on that,
sina lapsega tegema. Või me oleme erinevad ja kuidas erinevus on fundamentaalne ja me ei saa koos teha, kui see on selline, et sa vajad palju pikemalt rääkida.
ma räägin näiteks mida sa oled mida sa teed. Kõik tahavad rääkida oma unistustest, aga
Okay, how are you doing, guys? I see heated discussions. I see people being not convinced or convinced. What we're going to do now? Is that actually let's go with the birth of an idea process, which is happening really cool, and let's list some of the options you think could work that you discussed. You don't need to say it's gonna work. You need to say it could work. We're going to list them here. Then we're going to choose the most potential one. The one in this group opinion with the most potential to work with. So we're going to narrow it down a bit. So let's list some 4 or 5 options. Who had some interesting ideas? Yep, please.
An audition.
Can you say in a bit more?
Like a test hour with the kid.
Test hour, the kid with mother seeing it.
Yeah, both mothers.
The kid.
Okay. So okay, it's basically the audition, the real life audition.
Then you see the trust immediately. If it
Okay.
happens or not.
Fair idea. Very good. Any other ideas? I see behind.
We can test for the nanny.
Test? Which kind of test?
Fills out the form,
Okay.
and I'm not really sure how it really
No.
works, but it shows the personality of the person.
So you're going to test the personality of a nanny outside of the context. I mean, you're going to test the nanny alone without the mother before you get there.
Just a test, and then like puts him in talk with the mother to ask the questions and maybe some how she answered for certain points, and the mother can ask about these.
So basically, you're going to test the nanny. So you have a lot of information, this kind of psychological information of the nanny, and you're going to use that to convince the mother that's the right person. Very good option. For the option, I mean, this is the phase where you can't, where it's way too early to say it's not going to work or it's going to work. Let's call our horses here. But so, any other options? Yep, please.
A public profile for the potential nanny, where
Okay.
I can see her history, her image, her name, like
Okay.
public information about the person. Makes it
Public
easier.
information about the nanny to
How
kind of,
satisfied were the family?
yep, some kind of references basically as it is, as much information, background as possible. And please.
Without too much work, just add them as your Facebook friend.
To each other.
Yeah, so you find out about the nanny.
Okay. It's going to take, in fact, you might say it's going to take more time, but maybe it's even better. I mean, it's not going to be now 1 hour, but it's going to be maybe efficient when they get meet. And any other option? Yeah, then let's have this one as last. Yep.
Okay. At first, I did a warm up for
Okay.
2 people.
Okay.
So they
Warm up
for nanny and for parents.
Okay.
That they get to know each other a little bit.
Like some kind of ice breaking between
Yes,
two of them
yes.
without talking about nannying and everything.
Yes.
Okay.
And second thing, talking about 3 teams. How to listen or listen for babies. How do you get us down?
Assert yourself as a
Yes, how to assert yourself, and how do you solve conflicts.
So you discuss with both mother and
Yes,
nanny present
yes,
the
yes.
kind of
And
bring the
define
issues.
what is different and what is same.
Okay, this basically we have discussed, let's say discuss 3 issues. I mean,
Yes.
basically if we were looking for the model, then we need to have kind of standardized approach. Nice. And in fact, this kind of a discussion will bring out whether they trust each other.
Yes.
Nice. Are you happy to work with these 5 options? Yeah. So now what's going to happen, remember yesterday we had Fiona as a keynote speaker said this Sachi's concept that whenever you think something is impossible, I mean, do the opposite. Something is possible. So we thought that it's going to be really uncomfortable to move you from the tables and to move you around in the room, so we are going to ask you exactly that. So what we're going to ask you is that if you could, just in your own time, without rushing, come to this board, take one of the markers, no matter color, and put 1 dot for these 5 options, which one you think has the most potential in it for us to continue working. Everyone has 1 dot. Take your time, ensemble, come here, quickly look at them, say, I like the public profile idea better, so let's test it.
Let's go through them.
Yeah. So the option 1 was we have the audition test that the nanny has 1 hour with the kid with mother present. The mother sees nanny in action within 1 hour. Second option was the written psychological or any other test for nanny. You get the information from that, then you have a conversation with the mother whether this kind of a profile person is suitable for you, and things like that. Thirdly, we have a public profile for nanny with some kind of reference, background, as much info as possible. Then a bit long-term solution to say that they become Facebook friends and they have longer-term way to get to know each other, but then when it's there, it's there. And fifth option was that you have some kind of 1 hour warm-up between 2 of them, ice breaking or whatever, and then you have 3, for the sake of it, you have 3 issues.
Three basic issues.
Three basic issues that consider upbringing, and they're going to have a discussion on it. And it's not even probably important whether they agree 100%, but after this discussion, whether they trust each other or not. That's going to settle it. And so anyone comes here, takes one, and the one that wins, we're going to test. We're going to continue with the one. Okay? Let's do it quite quickly, and then we can. In many countries, they would trust only that. Say, you know, a sociopath can leave a very nice impression that I will see a science-based research. Interesting outcome would be that mother would have a choice of tools to quite expensive model for you to maintain a service. But then again, since the trust is on the mother's side, it's for her to decide exactly which model to generate. But I mean, can I ask you not to bring it up immediately, then we will kind of muddle it up, let's go with one option. Then in the end, I think we can have this discussion that as outcome, we can say either or all.
You will have it today.
No, nii, aga millest me üldse mõtleme üldse rääkida? You need a little time. So, anyone else? Last options? Last options?
Did somebody do it twice?
Imagine the large companies doing that with shareholders. Anyone else? I think that would improve many organizations if they did. I mean, at least, for example, in an organization, you would know in the end what your shareholders think, even if they're completely misled. When you get this information. It's very interesting that some people are standing and saying, I'm not going to choose any of them, they all suck. And some people say, I can't choose, they're all so good.
You could ask your grandfather.
Is there anyone who hasn't voted yet? Yes, we're going to have two options.
Now people have to choose this or that.
We're going to make two parallel processes for each group. Okay, guys, the voting is over. Can I ask you back with coffees and everything? You can grab them. Yep, you can get more coffee. Last option to get more coffee. One time. Okay guys, just grab a coffee and settle down. We have a tricky bit here. We're going to set up the group works.
on teine, sisuliselt on nagu me tegelikult loomulikult mõni areneb edasi ja mõned kooliga kokkutulekul vaatad, et teha ka täpselt samasuguste asjadega või mõtetega, kui oli kooliaeg mul esimeses klassis. Et ja mõned on siis astunud mingisugused teadmised sammud. Selle kohta filmi või aja jooksul pikalt.
Okay. So while the last people settle down, we'll start saying what now happened is that all of the ideas got some votes, but the idea number 3, public profile for nanny with some old social information reference, and the warm-up 1 hour session plus discussing 3 important issues got even votes. So for this group, we have 2 options that considered potential enough to work further. So what we think that let's not curb our creativity, and let's have 2 parallel processes. So some of the groups will take this option, and some of the groups will take the other one. Is it okay with you? Yeah, so we'll have 2 different ideas tested. It's not going to change the exercise, it's just going to have more fun while it. Okay? Ready? Thank you. And now I need all of your attention because there comes a tricky bit. This is where the model, John Mullin's model comes in. Because up to this stage it's quite obvious what we did. Maybe in the actual company would take some more time, but it's quite obvious. We had some ideas, we took the most potential one. Now let's go and test it with this testing tool, stage 1. How to get from a general idea that you have public profile for any warm-up discussion and think how to get to something testable hypothesis for something that can be measured in the end. Let's go step by step, and I'll introduce the first group work. We'll start with it, and then it comes on with the next second group work. Firstly, what John Mullin suggests for the company to do is to think about what you know about this business or about any kind of similar business like that, any kind of similar processes like that, and look for 2 things. First, are there any analogous solutions to this problem? I mean, are there any similar things that have worked? For example, if I don't know about whether this public profile things works for nannies, but I can say that from my experience, I know people who hire personnel and personnel managers, human resource managers, trust public profiles a lot. So I know that in some fields, public profile is all you need, for example. I'm bringing just an example. And so the first stage, think about as many analogs, as many similar things working well as possible. It can be in the same field, it can be in a completely different field. For example, some of them you could say, I know, for example, this warm-up thing works because that's what we did in kindergarten with mothers. And I know the kindergartens use it. I know several kindergartens who use exactly this model and it works. So this is analog, similar solution. As many as possible can be completely different, but what are the ideas and experience you have that makes you feel that it's going to work? Okay? And the second thing you need to think about is exactly the opposite. Are there situations where a solution like that has failed and not worked? For example, does this social profile thing alone work for hiring people? Not really, you never hire a person only from this. Does this social profile person works, for example, for hiring a plumber? Okay, actually for a plumber it's an analog. But in case of this, nah. So you think about for your diverse experience as much as possible. For this you are a perfect group because you have completely different people. For this sometimes the businessmen need to get someone from outside as for diversity. So the next group task is as simple as possible, maximum 7 minutes, 5-7 minutes for that. Think about similar solutions that will have worked in some field or this field, and think about opposite examples where this kind of approach is not going to work. So in the small groups you have formed, firstly, I don't know, do you want to choose as a group yourselves which solution to work with in each group, or do you want us to tell you? How do you want?
You tell.
What? You want to choose? Okay. Basically what we're going to do, each group will choose themselves which of those 2 you work with to discover analogs and antilogs, okay? Not with both, with one of them. If within 1 minute you haven't chosen, we'll come and say you. Okay. So you choose one of those topics, and you think about analog examples, anti-log examples, okay? We're going to be walking around. In the end, we're going to ask each group some examples. I think this is, if I was part of a childcare, it would be my dream that so many people are doing some intellectual work for me. Now, but I understand from your faces that discussions are getting interesting, yes? This is the idea, that's why we choose that. So when we started testing on ourselves, and we couldn't stop. Now we need to stop you because we have time limits. In real life, you will not have so much time limits, so it's going to be more fun. But but one extra task before we start asking you that. Now, probably some of your groups have many analogs and antilogs. Maybe some of you have just one, but maybe if you have some many. The question before we start speaking loudly and asking you, we kindly ask you to choose one, the best antilog you have and the best analog you have. But the criteria for choosing the best one will be that it's most adequate, it's most, how to say, similar to the context we need to decide. So if, for example, you have a very, very good analog, but it's from a space technology, how the NASA engineers learn with each other. And then you have not so nice analog, but it's from the kindergarten. Just maybe the kindergarten example is a bit more adequate, but it's up to you to decide. So try to look at the options you have, both analogs and antilogs. Of each, you need to take the best one which suits to solve your questions. Okay? A minute or two for that, and after that we'll start seeing what else. Aune will bring each of your groups one green and one red. Red, green. To the green analog, to the red antilog, the best one. Okay, are you ready? Have you chosen one from each? You have one green and one red, yes? I hope. The discussion just now. So do you have it? Which of the groups have it? Can you show me? Do you have one green and one red? Yeah, you have it. I see it. Wait a sec with it. Do you have the decision, your group?
One decision, yes.
One green, one red, or?
One green.
That's okay, at least one green. Do you have the decision? Yes, I see. You have something that's been written, something been written there. Okay, I'll give you just 30 seconds to finish up writing, and then we'll ask you to say a few, I'll go to the group, I guess. Okay. So now we will quickly hear out the analogs and antilogs we have discovered. Okay? Okay. Yes, a good idea. Now, just before we go with that. Okay, come back to the room. Thank you. Now, which one of the group did the public profile option? Can you show us? Here, there, and back there. 4 groups did. Let's explore this public profile analogs and antilogs first. Okay, since I'm here, I'll start from here. I'll give you the mic. Can you present them?
Yeah, sure. So we had the public profile, and a good analog we found to be a public profile for doctors. Apparently in Estonia you have the service called tervisetrend.ee. So we thought that that's a good one. And a negative one, an anti-log, we found to be public profiles for corporate operations in Facebook. Those being the Facebook corporate pages where sometimes you have fake likes or other types of misinformation. Yeah.
Okay.
That's about it.
Yep.
Thank you.
So you have another service from medicine that works like you want this one to work, in good sense, and then you have Facebook with all the problems of faking identity, data, likes, etc. Thank you for that. Now, which group next one? Who was the next one? I'll come to you last, if it's okay. Can I give you the mic? It's a camera mic, so you need to speak loud without it as well.
Okay. So we have this hospitality club and coach surfing. I think you all know them. There you can have profiles and people can comment on them.
So they are the organizations which allow you to invite a foreigner person to stay at your home for nights as a guest.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, it works. It's a good example.
Yeah. The other one was more difficult one, but we thought of kind of a platform where people don't comment on anyone.
Ah, so like a dead social platform.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have an example? Or general?
No concrete examples. Yeah.
And with one cognac. I'll keep the cognac.
või siis ütleme, et näiteks ema vaatab, et noh, et lapsehoidja on liiga ilus, mis siis teil on liiga hea ja siis ta ei võta teda.
Okay. Which one there was the next? You had who has this social profile option as well? Which groups? Back there? Okay. And you as well. Let's take your group then. You have the Facebook slash.
Yeah, we're pro Facebook. We're all the way pro Facebook. So people who are skeptical about Facebook, I think they're even more skeptical about some other type of database. Or if you're very anti-e-social, people can try LinkedIn, for instance. But LinkedIn is good for finding IT professionals. So
basically, you say you generally believe that social networks work in this case.
Yes.
As Facebook example, LinkedIn example. Okay.
Yes.
And
the anti version of it just have list of people there without proper description, and basically it's like mapped out random. So
okay, it's just like Google Plus, yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, you have an example of social networks that work and social networks that doesn't, and you think that the Facebook, for example, stands for a good example. Okay.
Yes, and LinkedIn.
Okay. Can you pass the memo?
Hello. We found an analog that we turned into an anti-log. Let's see. So there's a service called TaskRabbit.com. It runs in the US, and what you do, you can basically hire a random service. Like we found out that there's a big shopping holiday called Black Monday, and there's a lot of queues. You can hire a person to stand in line for you, but you can also use it to hire a nanny, of course. So we thought it would be a good analog because they have public profiles. But once we looked into it, we saw that the founders of the site, they found out, I think they found out that only having a public profile doesn't work, because they immediately say that background checks is our task number one. This provides safety. So you can't do it without the background check provided by the company. So what they have is an intense application process, as they call it. You have an essay, a video interview, and a background check done by the company. So
before you go into any public profile at all?
Yeah, before you can enter this database, where you can be rated afterwards. But step number one would be a background check by the company.
Okay, so this analog turned into anti-log to say that simply public profile with reference is not enough. Okay, and the green one, none? So that was the key lesson you learned.
Yeah.
Very good, that's okay. Thanks.
Focus.
Hey, good focus. Any other groups with this public profile work?
Yeah.
Yep, sorry. You were here, but I forgot again.
Okay. Do I have to stand up?
Not really.
No. So we were like talking more like in general, because there are many sharing platforms where people like post things online, and they make it accessible to others, and like sharing cars, apartments, and tools, and the problem is that why sometimes it doesn't work is especially like if it's high value stuff. How important it is for the people, like that somebody would do harm. There are many examples of when it works, but there are also examples when it doesn't work.
Okay.
Like for example, Airbnb, it was at the beginning it didn't work at all, but when they make a platform public profile, they changed it a little bit. They made the pictures nicer and like more pictures, and they were actually doing it at the beginning, the people like from Airbnb, not the ones who set up the profiles. That's how actually people were more interested into like So like just to get more data maybe from the.
So basically already happened here and also in the back group there, but in many other groups. You saw that you can bring some antilogs, you can bring some analogs, but more valuable is to understand why some of them happened and some of them didn't. And you start to bring out the factors. Background check factor about maybe you need to pimp a profile a bit to be more suitable for the case. Fact that if it's high value, it works differently than a low value. So this kind of a process started, and that's exactly the idea that should happen with analogs and antilogs. It's not a brainstorm to have as many as possible, it's rather to learn as you go, immediately check out if it's an analog or antilog, etc. So thank you for this point, roundabout point up. Now we have the second batch of analogs and antilogs for warm up, 1 hour plus discussing 3 issues option. Understand some groups work on that too as well, yeah? Can you show yourself? This group here? And any other groups? No, you were the only one to work on that one. Really cool. So it's a lot of weight on you now. You can do both, it's not necessary. Yep. The microphone is for the camera, just...
Okay, so we were discussing the warm-up and the discussion that would follow a certain pattern. And we actually combined our approach with the previous one a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, we figured out that we couldn't do so many interviews. So we decided that it would make more sense to have these 3 issues, however, in a bit of a more elaborate way, to have online. So pretty much to match a large number of questions, both from the parents and from the nanny, in a way that would be online dating.
Aha!
So it would be online dating of the parent and the nanny to pick the final 3 or final 5 you're going to interview afterwards, and then to have the warm-up and the personal discussion.
Okay.
However, at the same time, the same dating is the red one as well, which is the threat that if the person appeals to you in person or doesn't appeal to you in person,
The personal chemistry.
the personal chemistry, then you might just drop the list and discuss something else, or just if it's, let's say, a single mother and a male nanny,
They might get married.
which would not be bad, however, that the mother might pick the nanny then for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Or if the nanny was too pretty and the mother wasn't single, then she might pick the nanny for the wrong reasons as well.
Or not pick the nanny.
Or, yes.
Not pick the nanny
Yeah.
because of...
So
Okay.
it's both the negative and positive.
Awesome work. I think exactly the level of discussion that is useful for the company rather than being distant. Thank you for that. Okay, so how is it so far? Do you have energy? Does it make sense to you to do what you're doing now? Are the discussion interesting to you or boring?
Interesting.
Okay, I see people still smiling and having some eye contact. It gives me confidence to say I finally shut up and I give to Aune for the very crucial next stage.
Okay, what you discussed already, and you starting to bring up some characteristics. What are the analog? The same example, Facebook could be an analog or an antilog. So we can't take the solution the others implemented and just make it for our own selves. We have to adjust it somehow. So we still are not there yet that we can say that this works and this doesn't work, right? So what we try to do now is to move forward and to get something more concrete out of it, like why does the Facebook work, or this you could ask, like Facebook is a bit difficult, but let's say that we have an Estonian example. You can go there and talk with these people and find out the details. We can't do it here today, but what we can do is that we can discuss in the groups what kind of leaps of faith are there. And what we mean by the leaps of faith is that, okay, we discussed, this works because we have some characteristics, but some things are still the gut feeling. That I think that it works because maybe I don't even know the explanation why I think it works. So we are looking for this kind of assumptions or leaps of faith that you have in your head that you want to test before you can proceed.
I can take the example of online dating. Now or Airbnb here and online dating here, and actually, in fact, that you have examples there, back there. You've analyzed and you've come to some characteristics, saying, for example, public profile with some help is better than without some help. Or online dating is actually efficient with some dangers attached to it. So now you are still the, how to say, defenders of the idea. You don't want to sink the idea. You want to still go on with it until you can. So you want to think about we're going to manage this problem somehow, we'll imagine, but still, will it work if I do it right way? If I do this Airbnb way and specify it, if I try to remove those threats somehow, will it still work? What are the things I still don't know, in fact?
Is it understandable what we mean by the leaps of faith?
Not really.
Not really, not really.
The concept of leap of faith is that, in fact, as in business usually happens, is that you're not going to have a final knowledge before you do. So if you needed to go now, for example, that's the end of discussion, tomorrow start working 24/7 on this idea. What would be things that you would be still saying, like, look, I'm not sure if it's going to work. I mean, we really need, I trust my gut feeling, but I'm not sure. Try to identify these things if you went on with this issue. So not the possible problem, but the things we believe that works, but we don't know yet.
So how we're going to proceed with it is that you will have an individual task for a moment to imagine that you really are going to implement the solution. Either it was the public profile or it was the warm-up and what you made out of it. And you are really defending it. And now you're thinking that, okay, I'm not so sure about, like, I know that it will work, but I would like to test some small part of it, or I have this feeling that this might not work, or I want to know this. If you have in your head some kind of idea that you want to test something before you can say that, yes, we will proceed it and we will put our money on it. So what kind of ideas that come into your mind, just take one post-it, and the idea that comes into your mind, it's okay, it doesn't have to be very sophisticated. It's just something that you feel that you would need to test more, or that you make an assumption on, okay? Just make a small, take a post-it, write it down in a readable handwriting. The small yellow one will work, and we will work with this in the group later on.
I have a question.
Okay.
What was the payment model?
Payment model?
Yes.
We were going with the monthly, right? Yeah, monthly payment.
Monthly,
okay. Okay, so take 1 minute, and the first idea that comes in your mind, it's okay, just write it down on the small post-it. Please everybody write, because we need it for the further group work, okay?
Before that, I would like to hear some few words about. So, how do you feel now? Are you confused or not confused? Are the questions you're discussing interesting to you, or they're becoming not interesting to you? Any feedback so far inside this process?
Still confused, but on a higher level.
Brilliant answer. I'm gonna remember that answer. Any other comments? Progressing. Any other replies? If you have something that is difficult now, what it is? What is difficult now in a particular moment?
Life is not so easy as you think. It's more easier.
I mean, if someone were doing the Twitter stream now, I think it's exact Twitter size punchlines are coming. But honestly, do you feel does something confuse you in this process, how we are discussing it at the moment? Or not? Okay, yep.
It doesn't confuse, but it's a bit difficult to keep the thinking just in the issue while you have associations of different solutions in other boxes as well that you could be working with.
So you basically you have some other things popping up that you could be testing next time. And I think it's a valuable point, because especially if you work in a group with your own colleagues, then you have this, and you have dealt with this topic for now, for example, a few months, you have huge of those. So sometimes you need really something kind of a practice in place that whenever you have a new idea, put it down on a post-it and put on the wall that next idea to be tested wall. And then you go back to this choosing. So this is a good point. You need to deal with those extra ideas. Because they are, in fact, those extra ideas can be the best results from this tool. Okay, any other points that you want to just say what's happening so far? Are we okay to continue with this tool now? Do you feel okay? Again, at any moment, if you are confused beyond normal confusion on a higher level, then you let us know.
The last thing we're gonna do today is to put up some sort of concrete plan for ourselves, like how would we really start testing it. By this model, you would also, if you work with your own team, you would also, when we talk about the leaps of faith, some groups were already very specific and putting very specific hypotheses there, like that we're gonna test. The others were more abstract. So what you would need to do with your team is to make it very concrete and very something that you can really actually measure also, put the metrics on there. We'll give you just the other worksheet for working with your teams at home, but today we will only work on the, like, how we would actually test it. Like, would it be one time with one small group, or would it be something public that everybody can give feedback, or how would you test the idea you already had, this leap of faith you were writing down on the post-it in your group right now, okay?
Until the paper moves around, I'll bring an example from my own work. For example, part of my work is in training business, selling commercial trainings to the companies. And there's always a question how to sell, not in terms of what to say, but to whom. And there are some trainings you sell to the human resource department, but there's some types of training you want to sell directly to the head of the company because they're strategic, blah, blah, blah. So let's imagine, for the sake, I started off with testing the ideas that my trainings are suitable to sell to the heads of the companies. And I've seen some analogs, they are nice, seen some antilogs, but I'm still convinced that it works. And my last assumption, and I still have assumption that one of the things that I don't know is whether I'm going to be able to get to the head of the company. So now I'm convinced it's going to work if I can sell it to them, but I don't know if I am able to get to their office with that. So this is now, for example, my leap of faith, that if I get to the office, I need to do this somehow, and I have to do it somehow. It has to work. So what I need to know, I believe that I'm quite confident guy, so I have an idea that I will start calling them directly or doing whatever. But I still have a leap of faith that they will hear me out. That the heads of the company are ready to listen out the trainer's proposal. Something new. Now the concrete hypothesis would be, within first 3 months of sales process, how many heads of the companies need to hear me out for me to be convinced? For example, if I try to sell it to the 100 companies, how many of those need to let me in the director's door for me to be confident of this model working? For example, I would say if after the 100 companies I try to sell, in 10 cases I get to the head office, then it's okay. It's good enough percentage for me. So then I would say my concrete hypothesis is that within next 3 months, average percentage of the heads of the companies will be 10% of each the companies will let me in. That's my hypothesis. I'm going to start. This is an example. Just you can do it whatever way. It can be a number. It can be a yes or no hypothesis or something like that.
And then if you start doing it, then you put, for example, first month, second month, third month, and then you make your insights out of it until you decide. Probably it's good if you have something that you can test already during 1 month or something very fast. But it depends on the field. In social impact things, it's not so easy and it takes more time. When it's more business related, then you can go to your customer. And if it's a service or something not so, like you don't need any product, then you can do it really, really fast actually.
But and one of the things, just not to narrow it down, it also can be some of the, how to say, feedback measurement. I mean, for example, I would say I sell, fresh bread, and I think that my value proposition holds, if 100 customers respond in the survey, at least 30 of them will mention that they like the freshness of the bread. So I want 30% of respondents tell me that the bread was fresh without me asking them. Then I believe that the freshness of the bread is good enough. Let's say there was just to say a silly solution somehow. I remember, I think the example was Burger King wanted to win the McDonald's on the French fry business, and they understood that the critical idea about the French fries is they're crunchy. So people like McDonald's because you do a French fry, people like that. So they had a hypothesis saying that if it's crunching after 7 seconds of chewing, it's still crunching. Then it's crunchy enough and people will love it. And what happened is that they didn't test it on actual people. And in fact, the crunchiness was achieved by starch, to adding starch to it. And in fact, those did crunch, but people actually hated crunchy because the taste was awful. So they never actually field tested it. The field test would probably have been, what kind of percentage of the people would say that I love those phrase because they are crunchy? So they did not field test it, but they have very specific hypothesis, but no testing process.
So we will finish up for the day now very soon. So you will have 5 minutes with your group, board meeting. Now it's time to decide how we will test this leap of faith we were talking about so long. Like,
if it doesn't happen, we fire CEO.
Yeah.
He's gone. If it happens, he meets the numbers, he keeps the job.
Okay, 5 minutes more with the group work and then we'll wrap it up, okay?
Almost got. Did you like the process you were part of last hour and a half?
Yes. Yes.
Why?
Why?
What did you like about it?
It's a good game.
Okay. What for?
What for?
For you.
To achieve something.
Okay, but I understand this table is quite happy with the situation. Any others?
I am happy.
What did go well? What didn't go well?
There was a lot of discussion, but I have to say, I also felt a lot of confusion all the time.
Okay.
I was like the goal or the task kind of was evasive.
So it wasn't quite clear why you do or what you do next, or what do you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, precision of that.
Okay. I guess it's partially because we revealed it as a magician, bit by bit instead of giving you the full picture. I mean, it makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Any other remarks? Did it work for your group? Are you bored to death now and you're happy it's over, or was something good about it for you?
We talked about would it be possible to have make this whole process like by groups, but in your guidance, were there any point that we took this one topic for everyone?
I mean, why we took one topic for everyone, not one topic for each group? Yeah. I think, to be honest, in order to have some kind of comparison option in the beginning of the process, so I mean, it was a yes or no choice, but I think the other option would have worked too. For example, I mean, if you were for example, in your company groups, then we obviously would go for each group differently process. So it's not necessary to go like this, like we did. It's not it's not a part of the tool, it's how you play with it. Okay, any remarks else? Any other ideas?
No, I think you should just explain like the whole process from
Okay.
the beginning.
Okay, it will be more clear. Okay, very good point. How about you, guys? Did you like it? It is not a disciplining tool that I approach you. It was rather, did you like the process or not? What did you like, what didn't?
I think we got a bit lost on the way.
Okay. Can you say in a few words where, do you know?
In the very beginning.
In the very beginning. That's fair point. That's fair point, I mean. Okay.
I think it maybe would have been easier if we have been thinking about the problem of our own.
Okay, with a bit abstract.
Because the nannies is a little bit, it's important for her, but
Thanks God at least you on this table that saved our guts. I mean, that's a relevant point. Just, I mean, as an example, it would have worked a better way. I hope next time you will be using it for your own. Any other? Your table?
Okay, this whole event and this process was very successful for us, but we were sorry because we couldn't share it with all of us. part because it was so complex project what we run and organize this social enterprise living lab project. We didn't want to waste all your time.
So you kind of took it for your own purpose in a good sense, this process?
It was very successful.
Some of the tools were very familiar. We used them before, but it has some really nice insights.
Okay.
And this led to tools we haven't used. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you for this work you did. Okay, thanks. You guys, any feedback from your table? Do we torture any other people in our lives with this or not?
Yeah, you should.
Okay. Now you should.
Every business, no matter what stage they're in, there are some things that are not certain, some things that they've assumed all the way, but they haven't tested.
Okay.
This is especially true for starting business, but also for running social businesses.
Okay.
And Look for Care has been around for a couple of years, right?
A year and a half.
A year and a half
from the very beginning.
Lots of things have fit in place, but probably many things here that they found out, and now they're starting to think about.
We'll ask them in a sec. What did they learn as well? But you got a good point. I think assumptions is the key of this modeling scheme to bring them out. Okay, thanks. Any other groups want to say anything? I also had a conversation with Olga here, who is not a part of a group, but he also had a very valuable insight. For example, she asked a simple question. The basic assumption between two of the options we discovered was that the mothers actually know what their children need from nanny. What about that? Maybe mothers are not the good one to choose at all. Maybe there are other considerations. So, I mean, if you have on a team a person who has a pedagogical background, you can have completely different set of questions emerging from the process. So thank you for that. Okay, I need to shut up now. So what happens now? I give floor to Aune. Will you tell something about how to use it? Smart, okay.
Okay, how we have used these tools before is with the smaller groups and who are already established social enterprises, and it's more consulting, mentoring style, so we can really go deep into the relevant issues there. So what we try to do first time today is to work with the groups who are not very who doesn't necessarily have a good, already thought out idea, and so it became more abstract today. That we saw how it works in one example, but you were not allowed in a way to work with your own case. But as we saw, the one group took the liberty to opt out. So there were a lot of compromises going on here. But basically how we use it is the Canvas tool, just to first put the idea there, what's your business model, and then we choose what we will work with and choose specific issues, and then we work with these leaps of faith and develop a process where you could test it, and then your homework is to test it really. That's the hard part. Not everybody gets to that part, so that we were still working on how to encourage that. So
we have feedback forms.
Yeah.
There are not extensive feedback, it's optional. There are going to be a question about social business model canvas. Would you use it? How can we improve it? The same about dashboard. And there's the most important thing for you, I think, if you want us to send you the live versions of this link for you to use it, just tick yes here and write us our email. It will not be spam, but why we want your email in order for you to have another option to tell us what you think about it privately as well. So if later on you use this tool and want to give us feedback, for example, it actually does not work with this kind of groups, we would really appreciate if you tell us, okay?
And the organizers asked me to say that we have still like 15 minutes where you can be here, take some snacks, talk with each other, and if you haven't signed there on the registration sheet, then please do sign that. And we would like to thank you.
Yep. Just before I have a small dip. From your side, how did it feel for you to have your company being discussed in this way?
Well, thank you all. So I am not the strategist of our company, so unfortunately our CEO and Diana is missing from this event. But it was very uplifting, and a lot of good ideas I got from the two tables I was able to attend at. So I would be happy to also talk to anybody else who has and indebted to get any more feedback. So thank you.
Okay.
And come talk to me more, or I'll come talk to you.
And thank you for working with us. It's really been a huge help. Okay, thank you.